You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
So when we're talking about the Seeders, the Guardians, and how they've been involved in human history dating back many, many millennia, and that they kind of left behind technology, or maybe the civilizations that they supported left behind technology. And so, this technology, is that kind of like the same thing as these arcs that we find becoming active? I mean, are these kind of like, I know people have talked about the Sphinx having a chamber underneath it of technology, and I remember some people have talked about the Sphinx having some kind of 4D, 5D spacecraft in there with all this incredible technology. Is that what we're talking about? That these ancient civilizations, when their day came for them to pass from the scene, that either they or the ETs they work with left behind these technologies or spacecraft filled with these advanced technologies for a day when humanity would be ready again for this advanced tech? Again, either one of you.
I'll give you, okay, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. Now, you mentioned the Sphinx. Well, Thoth, the brother of Marduk, is the one who's responsible for putting a lot of that there and coding it for a specific time to open. Many of these extraterrestrial civilizations that pass through here and have left technology behind, it is my understanding that not all of them had intended for it to be used by future civilizations to come after them. A lot of the time what happened was they were constantly evolving. And as they were evolving, so was the technology. A lot of the technology that is advanced to us was their throwaway stuff. They didn't need it. They couldn't use it where they were going, or it simply was baggage, and they simply decided they didn't need to bring it with them, so they left it here. Now, we're not, we're talking about advanced, multidimensional, tachyon, quantum technology. We're not talking about a Ford where its planned obsolescence is 9 years. For example, in the rings of Saturn, there are ships, mining ships, that are 10,000 miles long, and they still have robotic crews, android crews, servicing it and working it. It's still operational, even though there's no one doing any mining. It's still on, it still works. They don't build anything to break down because you're in space. You don't build anything to break down. You build it to run forever, or until you take it somewhere and you break it down. So, and we're also talking about advanced energy propulsion systems. So there's, it's not like they have to pull up to a filling station and say, hey, fill her up. The universe is full of energy, and they knew how to tap into it. And the equipment does exactly the same thing. It knows how to tap into it because the ships are organic, they're alive. They were built to be living organisms, okay? So that's what we're finding out. That's what we're discovering, is that civilizations that may have been 1 million years through this part of our galaxy, for whatever reason, they left things behind. They decided they didn't need to take it with them, so it's left behind. And, this is not new to the A's, to the Pleiadians, to those in Cygnus, those in Arcturus, Sirius A, B. This is not new. They've run across this stuff all over the galaxy and other galaxies. Equipment that was just left behind, that's still operational. Now, can we get into it? Do we have the genetic coding to actually get inside and use this technology? That's a whole nother question and a whole nother conversation, because we don't know how this equipment was locked. Because if this equipment fell into the wrong hands and was used for totally nefarious reasons, that reflects back on the creators of that technology. Yeah. So these things may be turning on, but can we use it? Can we actually get inside of them? Do we have access to their capabilities? These are the questions that I would be asking. And Space Force, the A's, the P's, and whoever else is part of the Jupiter Accords, and the other 24 council races, those are the questions that we have to be asking them. Because it could be some of that equipment belongs to their ancestors, their forefathers and foremothers. You know, it's difficult to know, Michael. You know, consciousness is unlimited, and so can technology. So can the ability of technology be unlimited.
Yeah, well, we will come back to that question because one of my sources, JP, actually has had concrete experiences with that. But I just want to give Elena the opportunity to maybe comment a little bit about this ancient technology that's been left behind, and the Sphinx and this so-called hall of records and the craft underneath there.
Thank you, Michael. Well, these technologies, it's not really ships, you can call them arcs. It's alive. They are allotted with consciousness, and they are existing simultaneously in different densities. This is due to the composition of their physicality, which is made with crystal. It's crystal materials, and such is their ships, the ships of the Intergalactic Confederation, or the Guardians. They're made with crystal. I went in one of them, and the first thing that shocked me, because I never seen that before, the architecture was organic, and the ships were feeling like alive, like conscious. And when you go inside it, there are crystals everywhere. It's clusters, not walls like there was made with crystals, crystalline structures and clusters, and it's quite amazing. This imbued consciousness and their technology allows this technology to be alive in different density at the same time. So if you alter it, it will be altering all the other densities, and they're all linked together by a global consciousness. They are all like, that's why when they arrived, the Guardians arrived in our star system, well, this big fleet, because as Alex was saying, coming and going, by resonance, all the conscious technology that they had left everywhere in the star system awakened, resonated, suddenly were put in resonance and woke up. I believe that at the time these people were here on Earth, very long time ago, their vision was maybe to live in harmony with the humans of Earth and share a civilization of technology and peace, but a dark evil came. So things went bad and they had to go, and they left behind of course, it didn't bother them to leave these things behind because they didn't need it, but also they left this in their mind, probably for the day when they come back, it will be because the people of Earth will have gotten rid of the great evil and will be then ready to use this technology. And that's happening. I know these ships, this technology, it's reacting with the DNA of the people who create them, who built them. So you need to have the right DNA to be able to activate them. And that's why also many of us who carry this DNA of these guardians, not the whole planet, but many of us have this DNA in our blood, in the blood of these vessels, bodies. These people awaken as well, and these people are able to activate this technology and use it. And they are sent in these arcs probably to activate them and just, see how it works. I don't know. I know about something under the Sphinx in Giza. I've been shown that twice. One by astral travel. When I was young, I was shown what's underneath. It's rooms with buried, structured with crystal eggs. I've been shown crystal eggs that when you tune in with your consciousness, there's a holographic universe that appears and you're in it, and it shows you things. And also, when I used to be work as an archaeologist in Egypt in my early 30s, I met Zahi Hawass, Dr. Zahi Hawass. I had a little mission for him working in Giza. And he said, one day he said, hey, come, I'm going to show you something. And they were repairing the Sphinx, the foundations, because it was very, the salt, etc. There was the entrance of a tunnel that he showed me. And he said to me, the entrance, the real entrance, is between the paws of the Sphinx, but there's a stela that has been put. And he said that there were corridors with rooms underneath that they had found, but it was a bit flooded. He invited me to go down, and unfortunately, it was quite physical, and I suffocated. I had a panic attack, claustrophobia, and I had to go back. It was really going into, a tube, a tunnel, and I regret this. But there were rooms, and I know it corresponds to what I was shown. So I know that is there somewhere under the Sphinx.
Well, when it comes to having the right DNA, I know my army source, JP, he has been taken into these Sphinx recently on covert missions with the army, but he was telling me about into these arcs. He was telling me about these arcs back in 2014, and that he was being taken into them by different ET groups and by covert operatives, and that he was able to go in, and it was quite clear to me then that they were using him to find out what was going on in there, or the ETs were preparing him for a future time. He said that, there's a future time coming where, these arcs will surface and, they will represent the future of humanity in some way, whether it's to evacuate, whether it's to help us move forward in some way. So fast forward now, in the last 6 months or so, he's been on several missions to these arcs, and he's described going in them, and that when he goes in, that only a few people can activate the technology in there, that things light up when these people move in there. And it's exactly what you were saying, that some people have the DNA, but many others don't. He was saying not that it's only a minority have the DNA, have that ability for these technologies to switch on. And I guess Alex, you said there's 200 million star seeds on the planet. Well, if you kind of calculate, we've got like 8 billion people, so 200 million. What's that? That's about 4% or something like that. It's only a small percentage of 8 billion. My I need to check my math there, but we're talking a small percentage of the population, but that sounds about right in terms of many of the star seeds do carry the genes within them, or the frequencies to activate these technologies. And I remember JP was saying how much the covert operatives were leaning on him to join the military because they wanted to use him more on these missions. But there were constraints because as long as he was a civilian, I mean, he told me in 2014 he was taken to one of these surface ships parked above an ark, but he was refused entry. There was an admiral there that said, "No, you can't go because you're a civilian. Get out of here." So eventually he joined, and he went into that ship in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Bermuda Triangle twice in the last few months. So yeah, they definitely are looking for star seeds. They're looking for people with the right DNA because the military, you know, whether we're talking about white hats, black hats, they don't have the genetics. So they call on the star seeds that do. So
Yes.
either one of you want to kind of elaborate more on the genetics and the DNA that's necessary to activate these technologies?
It's like it's a resonance. You need to be at the right frequency to activate the frequency, because you bind with the ship, you bind with the consciousness of the vessel, and there is an interaction, and you can activate it and control it because it's the same frequency exactly. And yeah, I don't know how to explain it better, Alex.
The military is fully aware, both light and dark, that many souls have come back in time to this moment. The frequency of a soul cannot be duplicated. It cannot be copied. Even if you make a clone, it is never the same as the original, ever. And they know that, you know, which is why they spent all this money doing all this dastardly shit, you know, to figure that out. That, you know, when you take out someone and then you try to copy them, it's never the same. So, yeah, in order for some of this technology, which maybe some of us left behind or we interacted with in one lifetime, multiple lifetimes, multiple dimensions. You know, I've told the story about when the A's make a ship. When they're building and growing the ship, before it's actually ready to take off on its first mission, each of the crew gets underneath it and they stand on a lighted platform. They put their hands on the surface, the outside surface of the ship, and a resonant frequency and something comes through their body and it goes into the hull of the ship. Now the ship knows them, so they and the ship are one. The ship is an extension of them, and they in turn are an extension of the ship. Okay? Frequency, holographically, etc. Now, if you're not a member of the crew, you will not get inside that boat, that ship. It isn't going to happen. And it will do everything it can to make sure that you're removed from the equation. You can do that in a multiple of ways. It all depends on how it's programmed. Well, these arcs, they're absolutely no different.
Yeah.
And what they're looking for are the people who operated or were part of the crew at this point, because the belief is we can get in there, we can figure out the technology and use it. That may or may not be true either. Because again, when you get to the control panel, it has to be a member of the crew, you know? So they obviously think JP is a member of one of the crews, which is why they're using him. It's absolutely fascinating. It really is.
Well, these arcs seem to be popping up all over our solar system and all over the Earth. And of course, we don't get to hear too much about the ones popping up in other planets or on moons, but the ones on Earth, apparently these are now activating, and this is something that can't be hidden for too much longer. I mean, is this part of the kind of big picture disclosure that is driving all of this? I've been wondering whether the arrival of these fleets recently and the activation of these arcs has kind of triggered a countdown, a disclosure countdown, if you like, that at some point these arcs are going to start floating, and that's it, game over, because it's like, how are you going to explain away these miles-long motherships that are suddenly floating all over the planet?
I know Elena knows this, and Michael, I'm sure you do as well. There are many people who are having out-of-body experiences or traveling, soul traveling, when their physical bodies are asleep and they're going to ships and they're being taught and they're being educated. What if some of that is actually going on, but they're actually going on a soul level to these arcs, and they're on the inside? So what's happening on some level, probably in fourth, maybe even fifth density, they're going to these ships, to these arcs, and the crews are re-engaging with each other after this long period of having been asleep or have been separated through different types of physicality and dimensional physicality. But what's happening is that these crews are reuniting on some of these boats. That's something that cannot be dismissed as impossible, because all of us who have worn tinfoil hats are now wearing crowns of knowledge because we were ahead of the curve. So I would suspect that some of that is actually going on, that because your soul in fourth and fifth density has a physicality, right? So you're there, you'd be able to operate equipment and do all the things that you think you could only do in third density. It's really an extraordinary time.
So do you think we're kind of like on this disclosure countdown with these arcs, that's what they're all about?
Even if the arcs weren't here, we're still on a disclosure timeline.
Yeah.
Anyway. Even without it. Yeah.
Anyway. And they are so sure that these arcs won't fall into bad hands, because we are getting rid of our human dark controllers, all these people. We are doing our job. The ETs, they have removed the ET equations. They've gotten rid of the grays, rid of the reptilians in the star system. Now it's to the people of Earth to get rid of their human problems. And that's what they're doing at the moment. But the galactics, and the intergalactic people, anyway, they are so sure that we are doing it because they know the future. They know what's going to happen now, because as Alex was saying, we're swinging towards the good timeline, positive, progressive timeline. And so now that this technology won't fall into the bad hands. Some had found these arcs. Some, I know the Dark Fleet had their hands on one in Antarctica, and they couldn't figure it out how to activate it. Why the Nazis were so obsessed with ancient civilizations and trying to find, ancient astronaut technology, and they were so obsessed by archaeology. But whatever they found, they could never activate it, because you need to be on a certain level and you need to have the right DNA. So that's what all the troubles they were making. They wanted this power, and they wanted the people with the right DNA. I know in few other places on Earth, some dark governments have had hands on them. Recently, Thorhan told me that in Ukraine, the Arcs was already discovered by shadow government, and they were trying to activate it, and nothing they could do. It was impossible. They couldn't. But then the arcs started to activate by themselves, and now then it needs to be in the right hands. But it does. So yeah, I don't know what. Yeah.
Well, I think the Guardians are here to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
And they're going to make sure it happens. It's just like, okay, you put a bunch of humans in a room and you remove the oxygen, what happens? They cross over. Well, with the dark side, if you remove the frequencies and you remove the food source and their energy, they die, they leave. And that's exactly what's happened. There's still crap going on here, but it's more of a human element than it is an extraterrestrial element. And, we have our work, we still have some work cut out for us in removing that human element and setting it straight. Or I don't know if there's a better word for it. Removing it from the equation if necessary.
Finishing the job.
Yeah. Well, not everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
I'm a John Wayne fan. Removing them from the equation.
Yeah, that's right.
They've had every opportunity to figure it out. And so, their DNA has been categorized in the A file, which stands for assholes. So I'm retiring soon, so I can say what I want at this point.
That's great. Elena, I know you've received messages from Thorhan about this Ukraine arc and this, how the deep state people got their hands on it and they couldn't activate it, and it was time for that to be controlled by the white hats. So, I mean, you're really saying that this is one of the major reasons for the Russian intervention in Ukraine. I mean, is this because this is one of the things that I actually fascinated me when I first got involved in exopolitics was, what was the real reason for the US intervention in Iraq? I mean, they talked about the weapons of mass destruction, but really it turned out that they were there for Stargates. The US intervened for, and one of the things that they did was they made a beeline for this ancient Sumerian city, Ur, where the Stargates were and where the records of Gilgamesh were kept. And that US military did this, and they built a big base around the city of Ur, or the ancient, what was left of it. So now we're seeing Russia kind of did the same thing in Ukraine. I mean, the first city it captures, or the region it captured, was Kherson, and that's where this ark is located, under the ground of Oleshki Sands National Park. So again, the same playbook, where it's like, there's ancient technology there, and you get your military guys to go in there, and that's the first place they secure.
Yes, a month ago, I think, I passed on to you this message from Thorhan. We're talking about the arcs. He said he couldn't disclose all the places where they are on Earth for safety reasons, and we totally understand that. But he mentioned few of them. It was South America, the one in the Atlantic Ocean, which was the biggest. He said Europe, Central Europe, and Russia, North and West. 2 arcs in Russia mentioned. So Giza was on it as well. But yeah, and then that was before everything went like this in Ukraine.